the Senate Majority Leader, John Thune, joining us. Senator, thanks for being here.
Good to be with you. Thanks, Bret. You bet.
How is it going? I mean, it seems like it's tight.
Well, it is. And last night, just to get on the bill, we had a 50-50 tie, which Vice President Vance had to break. So it's a close vote. And in my view, this shouldn't be a hard one. It's $9 billion. It's 0.1% of all federal spending. And it's a chance for us to claw back some of the waste, fraud, and abuse in a lot of these programs. So I'm hoping we're going through an amendment process right now. We're voting on the floor on a series of amendments, most of them offered by Democrats who are trying to gut the bill. But in the end, I hope we'll have the votes to pass it.
But what does it tell you about trying to cut spending in Washington, that the House only passes this rescissions bill by one vote? And as you mentioned, you brought Vice President Vance to get it through. What does it say about how tough that is, considering how big our deficit and debt is?
Right. Well, I mean, it is, and we're $36 trillion in debt, and we just don't have any options anymore. We've run out of options. We've got to start doing the hard work, and it's politically fraught. I mean, the Democrats you're not going to get help from a single Democrat. They believe in government, funding government. You know, that's where the power, that's where the money, that's where the control is.
Republicans, if you all held together.
We do, and you know, unfortunately, we lost a couple of Republicans last night, but that's the advantage of having unified control of the government. You have J.D. Vance in the chair to break the tie, and we had to do that with a one big beautiful bill as well. So,
in the procedural vote, you had 3 senators vote against that. One of them was Mitch McConnell. Now, as Majority Leader, you know, Mitch McConnell used to preach that and implore Republicans to stick together when he was the leader. You're now in this job. He's on the back end of a lot of these votes, a number of them recently. Does that really fire up, burn some Republicans in the Senate caucus?
Well, I mean, obviously, I have that job now. I have to go and try and get the votes, and you want everybody as much as possible to play team ball, but everybody's vote is their own. Every senator has their own vote, and I respect that. In this case, I think $9 billion is a very small amount of money. As I mentioned, 0.1% of all federal spending. And that's why I'm hoping on the final vote tonight that we can keep our Republicans together, knowing that we're not going to get any help from Democrats who are averse in any form to cutting federal spending, unless it applies to defense. They're always happy to cut defense spending.
Right. Here is Russ Vaught, the OMB director.
We have other rescissions packages that we will send if we have a good vote, and that will continue. I think next week may be a huge pivot point in how this town does business, and will be an exciting milestone to be able to make actual permanent reductions to some of these savings that we've identified as an administration since its beginning.
So again, not to hit this again, but is it going to be tough each time they send a rescissions bill?
Well, I think every time a rescissions bill comes up, it probably, you know, depends a little bit on what the contents of that. This was a lot of State Department things. It had Corporation for Public Broadcasting. It's about $9.4 billion, as I said, a small amount relative to the total federal budget. But as we get those and we receive them, we'll act on them. But we've got to look at all aspects of the federal budget and figure out where we can root out waste, fraud, and abuse to put this country on a more sustainable fiscal path. We just can't sustain where we are.
All right, there's a story that's continuing to get a lot of oxygen and it continuing to get a lot of focus, and leaders on the House side, other lawmakers are talking about it. This is the Epstein files. Take a listen.
Pam Bondi, I don't know, when she originally made the statement, I think she was talking about documents, as I understood it, that were on her desk. I don't know that she was specific about a list or whatever, but she needs to come forward and explain that to everybody.
I'm not a fan. I like Bongino.
I do think there needs to be more transparency. I do think that all needs to move forward, and I think the administration needs to address that.
I've not been overly observant of it because it's not all that interesting. Because one thing I know for sure is my name's not on any Jeffrey Epstein list.
So what do you say to the Republicans who are concerned about this, really thought that this was going to come out full, everything they had, and now they feel like this is part of some kind of cover-up?
Yeah, well, I think probably at the get-go, maybe there were unrealistic expectations about what all was going to be entailed here. But I do think, I mean, people want justice. And I think the concern they have here is the people who are victims of Epstein and everything that went on around him deserve to have justice. And I think that's what is animating a lot of the folks out there at the grassroots level who are very interested in making sure that all this stuff is fully disclosed. And as far as I'm concerned, I think the President, Attorney General Pam Bondi, they will make the right decisions, but I'm always a believer in transparency. I think more is always better.
The president posted on Truth Social that he doesn't want the Republican support that are making a big deal out of this. He called it the Epstein hoax. You know, he doesn't really need their support. He's not going to run again in 2028. You need their support.
Right.
Where are you? I mean, does this split the Republican Party?
Well, I think at some point, Bret, there's going to have to be a resolution. And again, the president is the leader of the party. And a lot of those constituents out there who are giving voice to wanting to get more information are his supporters. And so, but I think, you know, yes, we're all interested in making sure that we get that justice is served and that there is full disclosure and there's transparency around this.
Last time we talked in depth, you were just becoming leader, and I asked you this. Take a listen. Things that Democrats will work with you on, big things that maybe they wouldn't have before after this election?
I would hope so. I would think that the election results were an incredible repudiation of where they've been taking the country. And so it would strike me at least that Democrats, particularly if they have to run in 2026, might be inclined to help us on some of these issues. We'll find out soon enough.
Has that changed? Your perspective changed?
Well, I think they are more obsessed today with Trump derangement syndrome than they ever have been before. And I think this is a party without an identity. They're scrambling to find a leader. They've got this crazy Democrat primary in the mayoral race in New York City, which is bringing to light a lot of the sort of extreme radical views that many on the Democrat left have. But that's where
here today, by the way.
He was here, yeah. And I mean, and you know, they're trying to mainstream it, but I just think they are completely outside the mainstream when it comes to where the majority of Americans are on a lot of the issues. But I would hope, at least for the functioning of our government, that they would be willing to work with us on some things. They haven't been so far. I'm hoping that on some appropriation bills, there have been a couple examples where there have been bipartisan bills. Don't get me wrong, the president signed one today down at the White House, but I think as a general matter, when it comes to the president's nominees, President Trump, is the first president since Herbert Hoover who hasn't had one of his nominees approved either by voice vote or unanimous consent. That the Democrats are blocking, obstructing, and delaying at every juncture, even on nominees that have broad bipartisan support.
But you're going to need Schumer's support to keep the government open.
We are.
So how are you going to get it?
Well, I mean, at some point you hope that in the interest of the country, that they will work with us on issues like funding the government. But it's been very hard because, at least right now, anything that the president wants, they're against.
President Trump asked House Republicans on Tuesday during a meeting in the Oval whether he should fire the Federal Reserve Chair, Jay Powell. They expressed approval. So as the head of the Senate, Republicans, do you think the president should fire the Fed chair? What do you think that would do?
Well, I think that ultimately the president probably will make that decision based on what he thinks how the markets will react.
And how do you think they would react?
Well, I mean, I think the markets want an independent Federal Reserve. I think they want a central bank that isn't subject to the whims of politics. There is an argument, and a very compelling one, with respect to the policies that the chairman has put out there. And I think that's what the president and many people around the country are responding to. But ultimately, you know, he's going to serve out a term, and there will be a new Fed chairman. So my assumption is, based on what the president said today, that he's not going to do anything about this anytime soon.
Overseas, should Ukraine be permitted to fire long-range missiles into Moscow?
Well, I think that Ukraine, we ought to do whatever we can to help Ukraine succeed and to put pressure on Russia to come to the table. I think what the president wants in all these circumstances, he starts with from a proposition that he wants peace in these areas of conflict around the world. But at some point, there's got to be leverage on Russia. And right now, they are continuing to fire into areas where they are killing innocent civilians. and they don't seem to be willing to negotiate. And so there are many of us, and Senator Graham has a bill up here which has 85 co-sponsors that would put tough sanctions on Russia.
Why not move that forward?
Well, we will. The president, I think, has decided to move sort of unilaterally on that front, both on sanctions and with respect to weapons delivery to Ukraine. So I think he understands what it's going to take to get the Russians to the table. We want to work with him and be partners on that, and when he green-lights the legislation, we'll move forward with it.
Let's look at the map in 26 and how you see it when it comes to Senate races that you'll be defending, ones that you think you can pick off. As you look at that map, what do you see?
I think it's a map which, in my view, it's a different map than it was last election, always. We are defending more seats, and we've got a couple of seats that are going to be hard. You know, we've got Susan Collins running in the state of Maine. It's a very blue state, but she is a political survivor and the only elected Republican, I think, in New England, at least in the Senate. And so we got North Carolina will be expensive, but we've got some opportunities too. If you look at Georgia, you look at Michigan, some other places on the map, the goal is going to be to preserve and protect our majority and hopefully to expand upon it. And I think in order to do that, you have to have a record of accomplishment. And I think the one big beautiful bill gives us a record to run on, and then it's a function, especially in a midterm election, of making sure you've got a good ground game and getting the voters out. But I think that the Democrat Party gives us a great opportunity because they have moved so far left. And so there's a big universe of voters out there that are available that if we deliver the right message, and I think the big beautiful bill and what it does to support working Americans, middle-income Americans, is going to be very compelling to them.
You mentioned Susan Collins. Obviously, she's voted against the president, what he wants a number of times. But you look at the example of Tom Tillis in North Carolina, who had this battle, public battle, then decided not to run. That hurt you a little bit in that race, one would think, because he's popular. Well,
you always prefer to have, and I tried to discourage him from stepping aside. But that was a decision. I respect, these decisions that people make are in many cases they're personal or family decisions. That was a decision he claimed, or the conclusion he came to.
But I mean, does it mean that Republicans running for those seats need to be in lockstep with President Trump?
If you are going to run as a Republican, and particularly if you've got any sort of a primary threat, you need to be very supportive of the president's agenda. It's what the American people voted for, and I think their expectation is that we're going to be good partners in helping him get his agenda done.
Senate Majority Leader John Thune, we appreciate the time.
Thanks, Bret. Good to be with you.
Thank you.
As always. Nice putt.
Thanks.